Hello, my name is Drew Penis Pickles, and today I am going to go to the worst university in the world, Valparaiso University. And no, it's not the worst place in the world, because it's filled with straight men and only straight men. No, it's because this is where the uploader went to college to get his bachelor's in meteorology, and it is also responsible for some of the worst years of his life. And yeah, most of you probably don't care, but just a secret needs to vent, so just give him his moment to do so. The whole 4 years he was stuck in this veritable hellhole was nothing short of complete torture due to social exclusion, endless homework, crippling stress, and feeling utterly and hopelessly alone to the point where he started making up people to talk to. I shit you not. No, it's not like the uploader didn't try to make friends, quite the contrary. He joined several clubs, sat with random people in the dining hall, tried to join a frat, and also tried to set up game nights and asked others to inform him when they were hosting game nights of their own, so that he could join in on them. And keep in mind, for how comfortable the uploader seems on here, he is very socially awkward, and talking to people he doesn't know like that isn't easy for him. So with all that Herculean effort he put in, you think he'd be rewarded, right? As if, despite all of his efforts, half of the clubs he attempted to join didn't let him, as if they thought they were better than him, especially the music-related ones. One of them he tried to join was a singing group, but they cut him off at the audition process, and the other was a choir class, which you'd think was supposed to, oh I don't know, teach him about choir, like a fucking class does. But no, instead, they kicked him out, because he didn't know how to read music instantly and couldn't sing 100% accurately in a test run ellipsis points. Because after all, it's not like it's a fucking class and it's their fucking job to teach students that or anything. The frats were no different, as he went to some recruitment events, and felt like he hit it off with a couple people in them, but did they let him in ellipsis points? As if they too thought they were better than him, and not one of them showed even the slightest bit of interest in him. Now not all clubs were that exclusive, and some indeed let him in, but even those that did led to no real friends through junior year, since many people in them were stuck-up rich snobs, who thought they were better than everyone, and the ones that weren't already had a group of friends. And at that point the workload was so intense and he was getting no friends from the clubs, only getting acquaintances, if even that, so he said fuck it and stopped going, since why invest time in that stuff, if you're not getting a damn thing out of it. And in the subject of the workload, that was another major problem with this piece of shit university, as by the time junior year rolled around he had so many classes giving so much homework that he had nowhere with all to do anything but mindless tasks like playing Deep.io or Agar.io in his computer, in a desperate attempt to de-stress to the point where he could tackle more complex things. And this was even the case in breaks like spring and Thanksgiving breaks, as usually each and every single one of his fucking classes issued projects to either immediately after break was done, or at most maybe a week after, forcing him to waste that time working on them instead of de-stressing like he desperately needed to. Now you may be asking, why not just take a blow-off class like basketball, if work was an issue, which is a fair question, and the answer to this was that this university, being the geniuses they are, had no blow-off classes. Yes, I shit you not, no blow-off classes, no basketball, volleyball, or anything fun like that, and even the theater class forced the students to read a play every week or two to review it in class, and I already told you about how fucked up the choir class was. Now another thing you may be asking, is why not just take fewer classes and go extra years, and this is also another fair question to ask. However, the issue with this is that he was getting scholarship help to go to test school, and if he dropped below 12 hours at any point, even if it was just for one meal life semester and the load went right back up after, or if it was for the last semester, after they had already pocketed 6 figures of a student's money, they would instantly remove scholarships and whatnot, forcing the student to pay much higher tuition than they would have otherwise. So of course, since the uploader didn't want to pay more, he was basically forced to keep taking more classes than he could handle, causing him much undue stress and all but destroying any attempt at a social life he could have made due to lack of time and mental soundness. Oh, and I didn't even mention the calculus class. When he took Calculus 3, he had a piece of shit professor, and I won't say his name now, though I might at a later point, just as Secret is still deciding. Anyways, when he was in this loser's class, he was forced to do a group project alone, and was also expected to do the whole thing, which was unfair, because everyone else had at least one partner, which meant that they had to do at most half the project or so each. Oh, and it's not like he didn't try to find partners. He found partners to times ellipsis points, but then they proceeded to ditch him without even telling him, leaving him in a lurch at the last minute, and the professor was no help, as, when he told the professor about it, instead of him just saying for him to pick a group, he asked the students in class who had openings, and no one agreed, and he didn't give the uploader the discretion to pick at that point like he should have, instead just making him work in it alone instead. Making matters worse, he was having trouble understanding the material, as the workload was making him stressed and less able to learn, and it was tough material to begin with. As a result, he only was able to finish half the project, and nearly flunked the entire class due to the combination of the sadistic students and unhelpful professor, which caused him even more stress. Consequently, because of all this bullshit, by the time senior year rolled around he was a wreck, as he was suffering from severe depression and anger issues, had given up on trying to find a friend, was falling apart from crippling stress due to having too much college work for too long, and only ever interacted with people when they were rude and told him to keep quiet. Because of all that shit, and even now is getting over the PTSD that horrible period of time gave him. And while this description might not seem like it was all that bad, trust me, it really was that bad, if not worse, as Justice Seeker wouldn't bother planning a multi-series video about me and this place, if it was just slightly bad. I mean, think of it this way, have you ever felt so stressed out you thought your brain would explode, or felt so alone, you legitimately wondered if anyone would miss you, if you were gone, or would even notice? Well, take those, combine them, and make them last 4 years with minimal reprieve, and you get a good idea how hellish this place truly was for Justice Seeker. I'm sorry, but I just shed a few tears because of how horrible that was, and considering I am the literal true definition of a sick fuck is fairly significant, because I do some pretty fucked up things myself, so, if I think something is messed up it really must be bad. And hearing about all this has made me so mad that there is only one solution, to go to this pathetic university and dole out some justice, Pickles style, in those Lutheran fuckers who probably are blaspheming against the religion they claim to follow with their actions. And while the uploader cannot be sure, as he is not hugely knowledgeable about religion, being an atheist, he highly doubts, when Martin Luther nailed his demands to the door, that one of them read, quote, "Please exclude socially awkward people and treat them like shit and drive them to near insanity." With a combination or excess work and social ostracization, unquote, though perhaps some corrupt quote-unquote supporters do skew the supposed values of their religion to that point for their own benefit, but I digress. Anyways, to get into Valparaiso University, actually scratch that comparison, I've been to hell, just ask back a Survivor 2102, and I can assure you hell was far more swell than this place, so I shouldn't put it down by comparing it to this piece of shit establishment, who the pube muppet would be quite justified in telling to fuck off and leave him be. But tangent aside, to get to this piece of shit place I will have to use my time machine dildo to go back in time to when the uploader was there like bag. That was swell. And once I am back in time I will look at the degrees this place offers, and after failing to find anything related to dildo studies, foreign homosexuality ambassador, or gay poopy butt sex, I will just decide to choose the not swell meteorology, which, as you may have guessed and or inferred by his many meteorological references in the past, is the degree Justice Seeker majored in when he went to this piece of shit. And actually, who knows, maybe this degree won't be so unswell after all. I mean, it would mean I could go on TV and forecast a 69% chance of come rain as a TV broadcaster after all, or just fart in the microphone like a fart that was swell, and or get to have sex with the National Weather Service employees in the job like I did in that video, where I went to the National Weather Service. But anyways, after choosing my degree, I will try to register and will come to the first major issue with this place, the price tag. Now we all know college in general is expensive, often costing over $20,000 per year. However, this one in particular will get my eyeballs going out of their sockets, as I will see that, for just 1 year at this place, the cost is, I shit you not, over $50,000. Now to be fair, this won't be unattainable for me personally, as being the gayest man in the universe, have amassed $69 trillion in life savings from my gay pornos and could easily pay for all of Brewland to go here, and even if I hadn't, I applied for and won a $69,000 a year scholarship for being the swellest applicant, just beating out the Wiggles and the Impractical Jokers for first place. However, even so, I will feel this is unreasonable, since unlike me, most normal people cannot afford such a price tag, and would likely need to pull out mastodonic loans comparable to the size of my cock just to pay to go here, and given how bad this economy is, many of them would likely be unable to obtain a career in their field, and would be unable to pay back their interest and then end up having to work to full-time jobs just to pay back the minimum payment in the loan for the rest of their life, never having any actual fun and dying young from stress. However, before I do anything drastic, I will consider the possibility that this price tag might be a mistake, since after all, maybe someone just didn't have their coffee and typed a 5 instead of a 2 when designing the webpage. So, being the good Samaritan I am, or at least who I can be, when I act civilized, I will decide to call the admissions office to inform them of this so they can correct the error as soon as possible and not continue to misinform people. And to do this, I will whip out my swell phone, as opposed to a cell phone, and dial them like yes, when I dial it goes dildo instead of just dial, because like everything about me my phone is super swell, hence the name bag. That was neither swell nor unswell, and after I finish dialing the phone will ring and someone from the admissions office will pick up and say, "How can I help you?" To which I will say, "Hello, my name is Pickles, and I was just calling to inform you about a mistake in your website. You see, when I was trying to register for classes I happened to notice that the admissions page claimed tuition would cost in excess of $50,000 per year that a student attends this place. Why this is the case I am not sure. Maybe the web designer just made an error like Candy did in Advance Wars and hit a 2 instead of a 5. Or maybe he was super swell like me and instead of typing normally he shoved the keyboard up his ass like and this led to the incorrect number being typed. Regardless, however, I just wanted to be a good Samaritan and inform you of this mistake, so that people who want to register would not be instantly deterred by the high cost and the university does not get a bad reputation it does not deserve. However, instead of thanking me for the help and saying they will correct it like I expect them to do, the person in the phone will instead say actually sir, what you saw on the webpage was no error, and did not in fact arise by someone shoving the keyboard up their ass like No, in actuality the tuition for this prestigious university is in excess of $50,000 per year, and upon hearing this my eyes will bulge out of their sockets and I will say what the Jesus titty fucking Christ? You must be joking, right? Surely it cannot actually cost that much to attend this place for just 1 year. But the person in the other end of the phone will say well in fact it does, and it is not going to change to a more reasonable amount anytime soon, since after all, how else are we supposed to pay for our pay for our sports training and campus maintenance? This pretentious statement will start to get me angry, but upon processing that he accidentally mentioned that he and the others were paying for hookers, I will get very nauseous and then begin puking through the phone like the only hooker I like is a hooker with a penis. Smells like penis spirit. Okay, admittedly, the uploader has no proof these people spend that money on hookers, but come on, it certainly wouldn't be too much of a shock if they were. They are all selfish rich fuck like Ronald Penis Clown McDonald Trump after all. Aside from the reference to Nirvana that was not swell. After I have finished puking, the person in the other end of the phone will get super pissed off and say, sir, what the actual fuck did you just do? I will then say sorry, it's just that I am so swell that the mere thought of anything straight like a hooker makes me sick. But regardless, who the fuck are you to charge so much goddamn money for admission, when you blow most of it for your own selfish desires anyways? Shouldn't you be focusing more on trying to help the students get a proper education instead? He will then say oh, but we are helping them get an education about how the world works. People providing services often charge far more money than they need to fund their selfish ends, and only once you've paid that ridiculous price tag and then some do you even get one damn thing in return for your effort. And by teaching them this we are making them much better prepared for the real world. I will then get very angry and say but what about the students? Some of them have to go into extreme debt and end up working constantly the rest of their lives just because of your tuition. He will then say so what, we are just in charge of getting them an education, nothing more. We couldn't give two shits about what does or doesn't happen to them after they leave, provided we are well off at the end of the day. Unless of course they are part of the 0.0001% of students who actually go on to do big things after they leave like that one television meteorologist Ginger Z. Then we never stop talking about them, because it makes us look like we actually have credibility, even though most of our students never achieve more than mediocrity after they graduate. I will then get enraged and say you blasphemous fuck, how can your university know those things and claim to be associated with the Lutheran religion? I bet you don't even follow 1% of the stuff that religion stands for. But he will respond by saying that the university is run by the 1%, so who fucking cares? And besides, you're one to talk, you sick fuck that puked on me. God wouldn't want a damn thing to do with you, and in fact you're already well in your way to hell. I will then say okay to things. First of all, yes I am a sick fuck, and you're totally right that God doesn't want anything to do with me, and that I will go to hell when I die, as the aforementioned Back a Survivor video proves. However, the difference between me and you is that at least I have the balls to admit it, whereas you just make up a pathetic ruse to try and protect your reputation. And second, you just called me a sick fuck, and since this is a Speakonia-based video I now have no choice other than to show you and myself the true definition of a sick fuck for calling me that, and before he can react I will begin fucking him through the phone, while I shove the speciest full of come-out stupid oatmeal I can find up my ass like this place is so selfish. I shit you not, the tuition for here was $50,000 a year before scholarship deduction when the uploader went, and it's probably even higher by now. No one needs that much fucking money. Yes, the uploader knows the admissions office people probably aren't to blame for how truly fucked up the university is, but in a Drew Pickles video everyone is an asshole, so for the sake of this video they are somewhat responsible. Suck my cock. You figurative cocksucker. Time to get this plot moving. Bag. That was well. After that has concluded, I will hang up and return to my registration process, and will thus begin deciding which classes to register for my freshman year. I will briefly consider signing up for 69 hours so as to be done with this place in 2 years. But since I value my mental health and don't want to make myself so busy I have no time to engage in recreational butt sex with my butt buddies, in addition to getting a shit ton of stress from homework, I will instead decide to register for much more manageable 9 hours this and later semesters, with the intent to go for 5 years instead of the typical 4 and pick up any additional hours I need during one of my summers. However, when I try to hit register, I will notice that the webpage is informing me that the tuition will cost $69,000, and while this will make me super horny, because it is swell as all shit, it will also annoy me to no end, as the university was already too expensive, as it was, and making it even more expensive is just an insult at this point. However, again, I will think that perhaps the browser is having a malfunction, and will thus lose and reopen the browser. Unfortunately, however, I will still find the site informing me that the cost is $69,000 fucking dollars. Damn, I never thought I'd actually be mad at something being associated with 69. But anyways, I will suspect this to more trickery on the part of the university, but since I am feeling generous for the sake of this video, I will decide to give them the benefit of the doubt on the grounds that this might be an actual error, and so I will again call the admissions office hoping to resolve this issue, and to do this instead of dialing them like dildo, I will just shove the phone up my ass and go to push the buttons instead, and since this is a Drew Pickles videos, this will somehow work flawlessly, and I will quickly hear the phone ring like a banana phone up my ass, and this will, as such, force me to pull the phone out of my ass and lick the poopy off of it like it tastes so swell that la swell, before I then put it up to my ear to begin talking to the admissions office. The person in the other end, who will not be the same jerk as earlier might I add, will then somehow just start talking, as opposed to acknowledging the licking noises I just made, and will say, "Hello, what may I do for you today?" And I will then say, "Hello, my name is Drew Pickles and I was just calling to address an issue I found with your registration website. You see, as I was trying to register for 9 credit hours so as not to overdo myself and thus allow me more time to do myself lol, I happened to notice that it said that the cost for tuition would be $69,000. I'm not sure if this was a swell joke in the part of the webpage designer, and if it was, it worked flawlessly but regardless it must be incorrect, as I spoke on the phone with another person very recently, and they said that the cost for tuition here was more around $50,000. However, like the person before him, he will not thank me for identifying a mistake, but will instead say actually that is not a mistake, as it does cost extra if you register for less than 12 credit hours at this holy university. And actually, hold the phone a second, pun not intended. You said you talked to one of my co-workers before about the cost of this place and that your name was Drew Pickles. You wouldn't perchance happen to be that same sick fuck Drew Pickles who fucked one of my co-workers through the phone a few minutes ago, would you? Naturally, after hearing him call me a sick fuck, I will get super pissed off at him for it, but seeing as I still have business to attend to, I will decide to brush it off for the moment and will answer his question by saying, "Oh no, that wasn't me. It must have been my twin brother with the same name I have. He, unlike me, is a criminal who goes around to random places and fucks men in the ass like a insert relevant one-liner here when they insult him. I, however, am a civilized member of society, and I will be about to explain further about it when the manger from Drew Pickles tries to be civilized too. Electric Boogaloo by Shelton, who somehow came back from the dead, will kick down the door and say, "What the fuck is going on here?" I, shocked at seeing him bust down the door, will be about to have gathered my commune of composure enough to respond, when he will say, "Did I just hear you say that you are trying to be civilized again? Has the simple fact that it messes with things in this imaginary alternate universe not sunk into your brain head yet?" I, not wanting this to escalate, will attempt to tell him that I was lying about that to cover for myself, but he will again cut me off and say, "Well, seeing as you have once again failed to learn your lesson, I guess I'll just have to make the point sink in by destroying everything you hold dear, akin to how you destroy all that others hold dear when you break the fantasy natural order and act civilized." And with that he will pull out the same Uzi he did in the aforementioned video and begin shooting at all my dildos in the room. Like stop shooting those innocent dildos. Oh dear, that was not very swell. After that throwback scene has ended, I will then turn back to the person in the phone, who for some reason has not hung up and called the cops like any sane person would after hearing massive amounts of gunfire erupt on the other side of the phone, and will say, "Please hold," before I put the phone on hold, and then use my cat-like reflexes, the dark side of the force, and the powers of swellness to perform a masterful jump in which I leap over the manager's head, swipe the gun from his hands, lock the trigger, shut it up my ass like a Dialgo so he can no longer use it to cause trouble, pull his pants down, and then jam my cock up his ass, before I begin going you are a menace to society arguably even more evil than the ellipsis points it actually no you aren't he, but you're at least comparable to me I'm not going to try and deny that I'm not extremely fucked up, but at least I usually let most people live in my videos, unlike you crazy gunman using your paycheck as tilde in the topic of Group Pickles Act Civilized. Someone really needs to make another installment in that series. Oh dear, that would be extremely swell. Beg, stop trying to kill people for no fucking reason. I will then say to the manager, you threw off my groove, before I take him and throw him out the window like that scene from The Emperor's New Groove, and then I will take his Uzi out of my ass and replace it with the broken glass from the window like don't try this at home. Beg, that was quite painful, before I then walk back over to the phone and take it off hold. The person in the other end will then say, sir, what just happened? And I will then say, trust me, you wouldn't believe me, even if I told you. But in any case, where were we? Oh yes, the issue about the tuition costing more, if you apply for less than 12 credit hours in a semester. Just what the hell is that about? Shouldn't it cost less, if you sign up for fewer classes, since after all, you need to pay fewer professors to teach me, if I'm taking fewer classes? He will then say, oh it does cost less, but you would never know it as we as selfish asshole I mean legitimate businessmen take deductions off your scholarships, if you don't constantly take 12 or more hours at this Pies University, and these deductions from your scholarships exceed the decreases in costs you get from taking fewer classes, so the net result is a higher cost, for you as a student. I will then get annoyed and say what the hell are you saying? Are you trying to tell me that, if I want to keep my scholarships I have to take 12 or more hours during my entire college career here? What about the later years, when classes are tough, as my foreskin and you've already got over $100,000 of my money in your grimy pockets? Shouldn't you give me a break because of loyalty to the university? But he will say no, because loyalty does not compute to us, and besides, why would we have just some money, when we can have more by ripping off the students? I will then say what the fuck? That's bullshit. You mean that, if I have a tough semester and want to take it easy the next semester for my mental health that isn't an option, if I don't want to pay substantially more money? He will then say, yeah, you pretty much hit the nail in the head there sir, and this will of course get me super pissed off, and if I were the pube muppet this is, when I would shout what that fuck? What kind of piece of shit establishment is this? Fuck off and leave me be, before I storm off and cancel registering for this fucked up place in a justified rage. But since I am Group Pickles, I will instead say that is the highest level of fucking bullshit, to which he will say well too bad so sad bitch ellipsis points now, unless you have something else you want to talk about, please stop talking, and to this I will say actually, I have one more thing I want to talk to you about. You know how that one co-worker of yours got fucked by Group Pickles and he will say yes I do and I will then say well guess what, I lied about getting a twin earlier, that was me who did that. And since you made the mistake of calling me a sick fuck when talking about that incident earlier I regret to inform you that you will be quickly following in their footsteps, and before he can react I will stick my cock through the phone and go this university is really starting to piss me off like seriously, they actually do cut benefits and scholarships if you drop below 12 credit hours at any point, even if that's during your senior year, when they've already pocketed more than 100 grand of your money and clearly don't need an excuse to get more granted. Other places likely do this too, but you know what's different between them and this place? They don't have a goddamn 50k price tag, and in any case it doesn't make this bullshit behavior right in any way. Plus what merit is there to punishing them for deciding to make a semester less work intensive? I think they actually should encourage that, because it's adult of them to be able to look inside and recognize their limits and proactively take steps not to breach them. I part of college supposed to be to teach people about the adult world. And besides, if you take less hours per semester they probably get more tuition overall, because you need to register for additional semesters and that likely outweighs the lower unit cost per semester. So are you telling me that even with that income boost you still need to sponsor them by taking their scholarships so you get even more money is greater than ellipsis points greedy sons of bitches using your enormous tuition as tilde your enormous greed also makes us well dialgo damn this is a long sex sequence. Oh well, I am Drew Father fucking Pickles so I have the power to just come and end it whenever I want, and in the subject Of that I think I will do that now. Egg, that is what you get for supporting this terrible place. Anyways, with that out of the way, I will hang up, and then angrily register for my classes, before I masturbate to take out my anger like a bag. That was a relief, and once that is done I will have to wait for classes to start, before I do anything else relevant to this video, and seeing, as this video is already long, as my cock I will just have to tell you about what comes in the next part. So see you next time my swell viewers, and never ever consider registering for this place, unless you are the world's biggest masochist.